Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are standing at the edge of a cliff.
Well, metaphorically speaking, of course.
Right, metaphorically.
Yeah.
But it really is that absolute high-stakes moment in any massive construction project. You know, the moment of truth.
Oh, absolutely. It's what it all comes down to.
Exactly. I mean, you spent years building something, a power plant maybe, or
Sure.
a chemical processing facility, something that cost, $1 billion. And now comes the single most terrifying question in the entire industry.
Mm-hmm.
Does the thing actually work?
And it really is the pivotal moment. All the design, the procurement, the civil engineering, the sweat and tears, it all leads to this single phase. Because if you can't prove it works...
All that concrete and steel is just a really expensive statue.
Precisely. And today we are specifically looking at the rulebook for that exact moment. We aren't just winning it here. We are cracking open the FIDIC conditions of contract for EPC turnkey projects.
The Silver Book, right? The 2017 edition.
That's the one. And we are laser focused on Clause 9, tests on completion.
And this is critical for you listening because in these massive turnkey projects, finished isn't just a feeling. It isn't just flipping a switch and seeing if the lights turn on.
No, it's far more rigorous than that. Clause 9 lays out a highly structured legal and technical obstacle course that the contractor has to navigate to actually prove they've done their job. It's the bridge between construction and operation.
And what I found really fascinating reading through this source material is that it's not just about the engineering. It's a battle of timelines, paperwork, and what happens when things go completely wrong.
Oh, yeah, the risk allocation is intense.
So today our mission is to decode this strict schedule, the 3 distinct stages of testing, and what I like to call the nuclear options available to the employer if the project fails the test.
It is a strict framework. The 2017 edition in particular is designed to force progress and clarity. It absolutely hates ambiguity.
So let's unpack this. Clause 9.1 starts with the contractor's obligations. But before they can even think about pushing the start button, there's homework to be done right. You can't just walk up and turn the key.
That's right. Clause 9.1 explicitly states that the contractor cannot start the tests on completion until they have submitted very specific documents.
Which ones?
It references subclause 5.6, which covers as-built records, and subclause 5.7, which covers operation and maintenance manuals.
Which makes total sense when you really think about it. I mean, you can't test a complex machine if you haven't handed over the manual on how to run it.
Exactly.
It's like trying to pass a driving test in a car you don't know how to start, or handing someone a literal fighter jet and saying, good luck, figure out what that button does.
That's a great analogy, because if those manuals aren't there, the testing creates a massive safety risk. Remember, once these tests are done, the employer takes over. If they don't have the documentation, they can't operate the plant safely. Yeah. So the contract puts a hard stop there. No documentation, no testing. It forces the engineers to do the paperwork they usually hate doing.
Okay, so let's assume the paperwork is in. The manuals are sitting on the desk. Now we get into the timeline. And this isn't a we'll test it when we feel like it kind of situation. There are some very specific numbers here that actually surprise me.
Very specific. The contractor has to submit a detailed test program to the employer. And this has to happen not less than 42 days before the date they intend to commence the tests.
42 days. That's a full 6-week warning. Why such a massive lead time?
Well, think about the scale of these projects. The employer needs to mobilize their own team to witness the tests. They might need to bring in third-party experts, arrange for fuel or feedstock supply, or ensure the downstream grid is actually ready to accept the power.
Ah, I see.
You can't just knock on the door on a Friday and say, hey, we're firing up the turbine on Monday. You need a month and a half of pure coordination.
And the program has to be detailed right. It needs to show the intended timing and the resources required. You can't just say, we're testing in June. You need to show exactly how you're testing.
Exactly. It's a logistical plan as much as a technical one.
Now, here's where it gets really interesting to me. And this is a theme I see popping up in IDI contracts a lot, especially the 2017 suite. It's the silence is consent trap.
Yes, the deemed acceptance mechanism. It's a critical tool for keeping the project moving.
How does it work here?
Once that test program is submitted, the employer has a chance to review it. They can issue a notice stating that it doesn't comply with the contract, but they are on a clock.
A strict clock.
Very strict. They have 14 days. If the employer receives the program and says absolutely nothing, if they don't give a notice within those 14 days, they are, quote, deemed to have given a notice of no objection.
Wow. So if you're the employer, you can't just let that email sit in your inbox. If you ignore it for 2 weeks, you've legally agreed to it.
Exactly. It completely prevents the employer from stalling the project by simply ignoring the paperwork. Silence equals approval. It shifts the burden of contract management heavily onto the employer's shoulders. You have to be awake at the wheel.
Okay, so the program is approved, either actively or by silence. Are we testing yet?
Not quite. That was just the plan. Now we need the specific date.
Right.
In addition to the program, the contractor has to give a notice of not less than 21 days stating the specific date they will be ready to start.
It feels like a countdown launch sequence. 42 days for the plan, 21 days for the specific date.
And then once that date hits, the contractor must commence the tests within 14 days of that date, or on a day instructed by the employer.
So it forces a rhythm. It stops the contractor from saying, we're ready, and then just sitting around for 3 months.
Correct. It creates procedural certainty. Everyone knows exactly where they stand.
So we've cleared the administrative hurdles. We're finally on site. Everyone is wearing their hard hats. Now we get to the actual tests. And reading Clause 9.1, it turns out tests on completion isn't just one big exam. It's structured in 3 distinct stages.
Correct. Unless the employer's requirements say otherwise it's a sequence, you have to pass one to get to the next.
Let's walk through them. Stage A is pre-commissioning.
This is often called dry or cold testing in the industry. It includes basic inspections and functional tests.
So no actual materials are flowing yet?
Right. The goal here is purely safety and readiness. You are demonstrating that the item, whether it's a turbine, a conveyor belt, a chemical reactor, can safely undertake the next stage.
So this is like checking if the wiring is connected, the pipes are pressure tested,
Right.
nothing is leaking before you actually turn the main power on.
Exactly. It's static testing. You aren't processing anything yet. You're just making sure the machine is built correctly. And once you pass that, you move to stage B, which is commissioning.
Now we're getting somewhere. This is the hot testing.
Right. This is where you run the operational tests. The goal here is to demonstrate that the works can be operated safely and as specified under all available operating conditions.
So it's about proving the system works as a whole system.
Yeah.
So stage A is it's built correctly. Stage B is it runs safely. Then we get to the big one. Stage C, trial operation.
This is the ultimate test. Reliability. Trial operation demonstrates that the works perform in accordance with the contract. You aren't just turning it on, you are running it to prove it can do what you sold it to do.
How long does that usually take?
It usually involves running the plant for a sustained period, say 72 hours or even 30 days, to prove it doesn't overheat or crash under sustained load.
And there's a really important nuance here regarding money that caught my eye. Because if you're doing a trial operation for, say, a shoe factory, you might actually be producing thousands of shoes during the test. Who keeps those shoes?
The employer does. Clause 9.1 is very clear on this. It says any product produced by and any revenue or other benefit resulting from trial operation shall be the property of the employer.
That's a crucial detail. Even though the contractor's running the test and maybe even paying for the staff to run it, they don't get to sell the widgets they make.
Right. Usually under the Silver Book, the employer is the one providing the electricity and water and fuel for these tests anyway, so it makes sense they keep the product. But it's important to note something here.
What's that?
Just because the employer is taking that product, it does not mean they have accepted the plant.
Yes, I noticed that disclaimer. It says trial operation does not constitute taking over under Clause 10.
That is vital. Just because you are running the plant for the trial doesn't mean the employer has legally accepted it yet. It's still a test. The risk is still entirely with the contractor.
And during this trial operation, when things are nice and stable, that's when the performance tests happen, right?
Yes. This is the ultimate report card. These tests check against the schedule of performance guarantees.
Like, does it produce the exact wattage promised?
Exactly. Is the efficiency where it needs to be? Is the emissions level low enough? This is pure pass or fail based on the hard numbers in the contract.
Okay, so let's say the contractor aces all 3 stages.
Yeah.
They've done the dry tests, the commissioning, the trial operation. They pass the performance guarantees, pop the champagne.
Not until the paperwork is done.
Of course, back to bureaucracy.
Always. The contractor must submit a certified report of the results to the employer.
And I'm guessing we're back to the silence is consent rule.
We are indeed. The employer has to review that report. They have another 14-day window. If they don't issue a notice stating that the results don't comply, they are deemed to have given a notice of no objection.
So the lesson for employers here is really hammered home. Read your mail. You have 2 weeks to object or you've accepted the results.
And there's one more fair play rule here. When the employer is reviewing those results, they have to make allowances if their own use of the works affected the performance.
Right, so if the employer insists on using the facility while you're testing it, or if they don't supply steady power like they promised, and that slows things down, they can't hold that against the contractor.
Precisely. It keeps the playing field level.
But speaking of slowing things down, projects rarely go perfectly. Clause 9.2 covers delayed tests. What actually happens if things get stuck?
Well, if the employer delays things, like say they don't have the site ready, we actually look at Clause 10.3, which deals with interference. That protects the contractor. But Clause 9.2 is really interesting when it's the contractor causing the delay.
This is where the contract gets a little aggressive, isn't it?
It really does. If the tests are unduly delayed by the contractor, the employer can issue a notice. They can essentially say, you have to carry out these tests within 21 days.
So they force a deadline. Get it done or else.
Yes. The contractor gets to pick the specific day within that 21-day window, but they have to give 7 days notice.
But here is the scenario I want to explore. This is fascinating. The contractor's in a dispute, maybe they're broke, or they just know the plant is going to fail, so they just don't show up. They call the bluff. What happens?
Then the employer plays their ace card. The employer's personnel can proceed with the tests themselves.
Wait, they can test the contractor's work without the contractor?
Yes. The contractor has the right to witness it, but if they don't show up, Clause 9.2 says the result shall be deemed to have been carried out in the presence of the contractor and accepted as accurate.
Wow. So if you ghost the test, you lose the right to argue with the results.
Completely. The employer could run the test, record a massive failure, and the contractor, because they weren't there, cannot dispute the methodology. They are legally deemed to have been standing there watching it happen.
And you pay for it.
And you pay for it. The contractor has to pay any additional costs the employer incurred to run those tests.
That is a remarkably powerful incentive to show up. It basically prevents the contractor from holding the project hostage by just refusing to test.
Exactly. It shifts the power dynamic straight back to the employer to ensure the project moves forward.
All right, so that's delays. But now let's talk about the absolute worst-case scenario, failure. The tests happen, everyone is watching, the champagne is on ice, and the project flunks. It doesn't work. What now?
First, we have Clause 9.3, which is retesting. If the works fail, the employer or contractor can require the test to be repeated under the exact same terms and conditions.
So basically do it again.
Essentially, yes. It references subclause 7.5 regarding defects. You fix the defect, you replace the valve, you patch the software, and you rerun the test.
But what if it fails again? What if you retest and it still fails? This brings us to Clause 9.4, which lists the remedies. And this is where the stakes get incredibly high.
This is the critical juncture. If the works fail the repeated tests, the employer has 4 distinct options. And the choice they make depends entirely on how bad the failure is.
Let's go through them. Option A.
Order further repetition. Just keep trying. Maybe it's a minor fix and the employer is patient. They can issue another notice and say, try one more time.
That's the nice option. What's option B?
Option B is what you might call the nuclear option. The employer can reject the works entirely.
Reject the whole thing, like take your power plant back.
Yes, but there is a strict condition for this. This only applies if the failure deprives the employer of substantially the whole benefit of the works.
Substantially the whole benefit. So if I order in the power plant and it produces 0 electricity, I've lost the whole benefit.
Correct. Or if you ordered a water treatment plant and the output water is still toxic, it's utterly useless to you. If they choose this, they go to the remedies under Clause 11.4d, which essentially means getting our money back plus financing costs and terminating the contract. It's the total divorce.
That is a nightmare scenario for everyone involved. The contractor has to literally dismantle the plant and refund the money. Nobody wants to end up there. What's option C?
Option C is partial rejection. You reject a specific section. This applies if that specific part cannot be used for its intended purpose.
So maybe the main factory works perfectly, but the automated warehouse system attached to it is a complete disaster. You reject just the warehouse.
Exactly. You carve out the failure, you take the factory, you reject the warehouse, and you get your money back for the warehouse part under Clause 11.4c.
And finally, option D. This one actually surprised me. It feels like the most real-world option of the bunch.
It is very pragmatic. Option D is to issue a taking over certificate anyway.
Wait, so it failed the test, it failed the retest, and the employer just says, fine, I'll take it.
Yes, if the employer requests it. Think about it. Maybe the plant is only operating at 95% efficiency, or maybe the noise levels are slightly higher than guaranteed. But the employer has customers waiting. They need the facility running now more than they need it to be absolute perfect.
Better to have a slightly broken billion-dollar project than no project at all.
Exactly. But it's not a free pass for the contractor. If they choose option D, the contractor proceeds with their other obligations, but the contract price is reduced.
Ah, so there's the catch. I'll take it, but I'm paying you less.
It references Clause 11.4b, which deals with calculating that reduction. Usually it's based on the loss of value to the employer. So if that 5% efficiency loss is going to cost the employer $20 million over the life of the plant, the contract price is reduced by $20 million.
That is fascinating. It basically converts a technical failure into a purely financial transaction.
That's a great way to put it. It allows the commercial reality to override the technical failure. It acknowledges that in the real world, good enough is sometimes the only viable option.
So what does this all mean for you listening to this? We've got a strict timeline, a 3-stage testing process, and these massive consequences for failure.
I think the key takeaway is that Clause 9 converts a physical milestone like asking, is it done, into a procedural certainty. It completely removes the ambiguity.
It stops people from arguing on site about what finished looks like.
Exactly. In these contracts, finished isn't an opinion. Finished is a checklist. Did you submit the program 42 days out? Did you pass stage A, B, and C? Did you submit the certified report? Did the employer stay silent for 14 days? If you follow the steps, you're finished. If you miss a step, you aren't.
It's a machine designed to churn out a result, either acceptance or rejection. There is no limbo.
And that's exactly why these FIDE contracts are the gold standard globally. They hate limbo. They force a decision.
It really highlights that in high-level engineering, the paperwork is just as structural as the steel beams. You can build a perfect bridge, but if you screw up Clause 9, if you forget that 42-day notice or you don't submit the manuals, you might not get paid for it.
Or worse, you might find the employer testing it without you, deeming the results accepted and sending you the bill for the privilege.
A truly terrifying thought to end on.
Indeed. It's a harsh environment, but a necessary one for projects of this incredible scale.
Before we wrap, I want to leave you with a thought about that option D we discussed. The issue a certificate despite failure option. It implies something really profound about these mega projects. At a certain scale, perfection becomes entirely negotiable.
That's very true.
Everything has a price. If the discount is big enough, a technically failed project can still be a commercial success for the employer. It's a reminder that underneath all the engineering precision, underneath the concrete and the wiring and the performance tests, it's still just a business deal. The physical reality of the plant is ultimately subordinate to the financial reality of the contract.
And that is where the real complexity of the Silver Book lies.
Thanks for diving in with us today. Read your contracts, watch your deadlines, and we'll see you on the next deep dive.
If you're interested in the templates, please visit our shop. The link is in the description.
Thanks for watching. Please subscribe and see next time.